Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 36 of the Classic Show. Today we have Ron Ashley. How's it going?
It's going good. Thank you for inviting me to your locale here
It's our pleasure.
for this interview, and happy to be here, Anthony. Happy to
Thanks.
participate in this. I know you guys are centered in La Belle Province, so
Yeah.
that's very a very special province for me, and especially with Jean-Jacques being there as one of my my representative. We've done a lot of inroads in La Belle Province de Québec, and j'aimerais dire que j'aime ça, pratiquer mon français dans la
Yeah.
province et
Yeah.
j'améliore mon français chaque année. So anyway, for all my Quebec friends out there, bonjour.
Well, Ron, it's an honor to have you on the podcast. We wanted this for a while, so we talked to Jean Jacques, and we wanted him to make it happen, right?
Right.
Because we know you're a busy man, so again, thank you for joining us.
You're
Um,
welcome.
Now, there's a lot to talk about with you, but like with every guest we have here, we like to do a little background, okay? So to where they get into fitness. Or for you, when does it start for you, the fitness journey?
Well, actually, it starts for me like I think most people. It starts as training at a gym. I actually joined a gym called the Vic Tannies. Now, Vic Tannies was like the good life back in the day of when I used to train. Like we're going back to 1970. So it's been a few years, but I think I was like 19 years old, 18 years old. And, I joined the Vic Tannies and began training there. Uh, and from there, I became an instructor at Vic Tannies. And I remember in those days, people used to come in, we used to take their measurements and then put them on the program. They were kind of like the original. They were kind of like, they really started the franchise, Big Tannies. They were across Canada, they were across the US. You had all kinds of different types of memberships. And that's where I really kind of got my start. So at the same time, I was always looking at the magazines and wanting to get involved with the sport. But back in 1970, I mean, there weren't that many shows
Yeah.
Yeah.
in Canada, to tell you the truth. And especially here in Northern Ontario, I lived in Sudbury, but I did manage a club here in Sudbury and worked for Vic Tannies. And then I ended up in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, where, at 22 years old, I just got married, lived in the Soo, and I was actually managing the Vic Tannies club there. And that's when I actually began competing at a little show in Sault Ste. Marie. And I remember back then, uh, they had one judge and one light. The judge stood in front of you with a piece of paper and he would mark you, and they had one floodlight on you. And it was a real thrill for me. And it was just bodybuilding back then. There was
Yeah.
it was just bodybuilding. I mean, we probably had, eight or 10 competitors. And that's where I got my start. And then that was it. I was hooked. And it's like anything else. You're working out, you're getting a lot of attention, you're feeling good, you're getting buff. And I wanted to look the part, working at Big Tannies.
Yeah.
So I started doing that and competed at a few shows, and eventually came back to Sudbury and managed the Big Tannies here in Sudbury. By the time I was 25 years old, I had competed at a few shows. And then I did compete at the Mr. Sudbury and then won the Northern Ontario Championship, which is about as far as I went,
Okay.
because at that time, you could get away with a lot. You didn't really need, I mean, the competition was there, but it wasn't at the level that it's at now. I mean, I was just didn't have the balance to really go any further. And I was a natural bodybuilder,
Okay.
so that kind of, I wanted to stay focused on that. But genetically, it was just not, I could just not see myself heading into international levels. So, of course, I wanted to stay involved with the sport. So, we met up with a fellow called Chester McLean at the time, who ran the Ontario Association, and I became involved as a regional director here in Northern Ontario. And also, since I wasn't competing in it anymore, but I was still working at Vic Tanny's, training athletes and that, I just wanted to get more and more involved as a judge and as a, an executive member, or I wanted to be part of the sport. So that's how it kind of like all began. And from there, I judged quite a few shows, but experienced a few shows. There was a fellow here, his name was Conrad Laframboise. He competed at the Olympia, or the Mr. Universe, in 1963. Actually competed and got beat by Arnold Schwarzenegger in the Mr. Universe. Came in second to him, actually. But he owned a club here, and he ran a show called the Mr. Sudbury. And Conrad Laframboise, he's, like I said, he did win the Mr. Universe, and I really looked up to him. He ran the Mr. Sudbury show, and the award that he gave out was a special trophy. It was like the Stanley Cup, I guess. There was little plates on it. I wish I had it here in front of me. In fact, I'm kind of like the historian, and I had the original trophy here in my home, and I kind of guard it like the Stanley Cup. And when there's a Mr. Sudbury here, we add the winner's name, the plate on that trophy.
Oh yeah.
But anyway, he ran the first Mr. Sudbury show that I got involved with, and then from there, I took over and started running some events called the Mr. Sudbury Championships. Ran that for quite a few years and continued judging. So in the mid 70s, I became part of the Ontario. Back then, it was OABBA, Ontario Association, or Ontario Bodybuilding Association, and we had Chester McLean, which was the president, and then we had a whole executive, and I ran the North. I was the regional director for Northern Ontario, something like JJ. He's regional director for Quebec, kind of, kind of thing. But I ran the North, and there was a southern region of Ontario, and I just continued on and stayed in the sport. Even after I left Vic Tanny's and became a full-time firefighter, because I got a career in firefighting, became a firefighter in 76, 78. I still kept working part-time at Vic Tanny's, which doesn't exist anymore, but they were, like I said, they were the franchise to be involved with. Yeah. And every year I ran the Mr. Sudbury Championships, and I ran the Northern Ontario. One year I ran the Eastern Canada, which included Quebec and Ontario. So I was promoting the show here. And as an executive part of the association, we had different presidents, and I continued being involved. I never let it go. So from then till now, I was always involved in the sport. And then I went to the Arnold, the Arnold Classic, or I guess back then it would have been the Olympia in Columbus, Ohio, back 76, 77, and 78. And, I watched Frank Zane win it 3 years in a row. So like I was hooked. I was like, the blood ran through my veins. It was all bodybuilding and the sport itself. Even though I had a full-time job and I had a family, this was always my main hobby. And, from there, I got involved and became, the president of the Ontario Association and continued to promote the sport till today. We're in 2018, with all these years of experience being involved in the sport as a judge. By the time 2018 came, I was an international judge, judge in Seoul, Korea as an amateur judge. And then I finally got my IFBB Pro judge's card. And Wayne D'Amelia was president of the IFBB Pro League at that time. He finally invited me to judge some of the IFBB Pro shows in the US. We didn't have anything going on in Canada on the Pro League. They're all US. So I did a few shows for him, and then finally got to judge the Arnolds. And then I finally made it to the Olympia. And I'd say, I guess 10 years in a row, excluding last year, I was able to judge the two main events in the world. The Arnold Classic in Columbus and the Olympia in Las Vegas. I mean, I was one of the judges, and probably, the only one from Canada actually that was judging, and I guess that did judge the Olympia, and I continue to do it, except for last year due to the pandemic. But
Yeah.
I've got to this level where I'm quite comfortable where we are now, and it's come a long way. And as I said, when I started, it was men's bodybuilding only.
Yeah.
So when we promoted a show, it was like, you had 18 competitors. That was huge. We did the registrations in the morning at 10 o'clock, at 11 o'clock, weigh-ins were done. At noon, we started the show, and pre-judge was done by 3. Then we had the finals like at 6 o'clock at night, and with just men's bodybuilding, and 16, 17 competitors, and it was pretty exciting. And then from there it went, of course, women's bodybuilding come on board, the whole history.
Yeah.
And we're at a point now where we got so many categories, and it's expanded. It's become accepted by the general public, where at one time we were just a small community.
Yeah.
We were like a real extreme sport, although we are still extreme in part of it, especially with the bodybuilding and the women's bodybuilding, and even women's physique. It's still more. It's being more accepted now by the general public as a real sport, especially with the natural movement. That I feel Canada has to take a lot of credit for where it's at right now.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you'd like to ask some questions on that. I know, I mean, I can just keep on talking here, especially, I don't know the direction you want to go, but we can talk about the natural movement, what role Canada played. And listen, during all this time, all the problems, I'm just talking about my own little bubble here, in Ontario.
Yeah.
But let's face it, Ontario, was the largest population in Canada. And by that alone, we had more competitions than the other provinces. Even back in the day when we were just Ontario, we had like 15 competitions here, and we were always kind of like in the forefront. We were one province and part of Canada, and there was 10 provinces back then with the Canadian Bodybuilding Federation, who sanctioned all of Canada.
Yeah.
But things have changed since then, because back then you could only compete in your own province and you couldn't cross the lines. Things have changed considerably. We're in a much better place now. And there's some history on how we got here, but I like to say that where we've been and where we are now, it's just a completely different world. Like it's so much better, so much better.
So, of course, you've been through a lot. So we have some question about what you just said. So I'd like to go back to like the early days, like the 70s, the 80s. Like, how was it to promote a show back then? Because like you said, that there were not a lot of people going into it, but
Yeah.
What was the strategy like to promote the show? Because you wanted more people, of course.
Back then the whole community seemed to get more involved. In fact, I ran a couple of shows, if I remember. I mean, it was such a passion, and some shows we ran, all the money went to nonprofit, like a cancer, or we just gave the money away, and it was just like, it was just more of a passion back then. It wasn't as much as a business as it is now. Yeah. Now it's a multi-million-dollar industry. The fitness industry is huge, along with the supplement industry, right? But back then, I mean, the people that would sponsor my show would be like gyno opticians. They sold glasses, and it wasn't necessarily supplement companies. Yeah. So we would really count more on the audience, and back then, I mean, if you had 16 bodybuilders, you could fill the auditorium, because everybody came to see. It was a big deal. Yeah. Where now we still fill the auditorium, but we have like maybe 200 competitors, so, and then when bikini got introduced and all that, there was a lot of resistance, even from myself. Like, what are we doing, adding bikini to bodybuilding? Like, we're a bodybuilding sport. We were hardcore bodybuilders, and even the women's bodybuilding, there was some resistance. But once they came on board, they were accepted. But there was a lot of resistance with the women coming on board, and especially the bikini category. But now they're saving the sport. They are literally saving the sport. And, I mean, we have competitions where, thank God we have the bikini, the figure, the fitness, and all these categories, because the entry fees help pay the bill. The overhead is so much higher. But back then, just with the bodybuilding, you would think that the promoters that would promote these sports would lose money. But I mean, we would make, $800, $900, just enough to pay the bills, because you had to rent the venues. But I mean, the big deal back then was who can get the biggest trophy. I mean, we always wanted the trophy that was 8 feet tall. We'd be handing that out to the competitors. It was a big deal. Now we're handing out medallions. It's a little different. Yeah. But there was a lot of pride and a lot of passion. There's still a lot of passion now, but not like then. It really, it was just a great hobby, and we just enjoyed it so much. There was a lot more transparency in terms of, most of the shows back then, were natural, even though it wasn't being tested. There wasn't, the steroid and all that stuff wasn't out there like it is now. Yeah. In all sports, by the way, but also in our sport. But it was a different era, and it was a lot of fun. And as I said, now we've grown more into a business, a fitness business, and just like any other sport, whether it's football, hockey, bottom line is it's a business, and the bills got to be paid. And some of the promoters that are promoting these shows, that this is what they do for a living. Where back then, and still today, most promoters have a real job, or they have or they're involved with a supplement company or something like that. I mean, but the sport has grown to the point where like in 2019, when things were normal, we had 60 competitions across Canada. Like, that's huge. We're second to the US. I mean, there's no other country in the world that does what we do. I mean, if you think of our population compared to, let's just say, to the US, our per capita for competitions, we got the highest per capita in the world. We really do. So you got to remember, Canada has a lot of history, especially with Ben and Joe Weider. They were born here. Yeah. This is where it all started. So Canada's very special. And that's why we have such a strong relationship with NPC worldwide. They had a lot of respect for Ben Weider and Joe Weider. And this is where it all started. Think about it. So we have to maintain that level of expertise, that level of, okay, we're the ones that are bringing things forward. We want to be the ones that give the biggest contribution to the sport. We want to, especially in the natural movement. Like, I mean, as you already know, we had a show in Montreal called the Ben Weider Natural. That's like with a natural pro show. Who would have thought? Yeah. The only natural pro show in the world, and we're running it in Montreal in a venue where Ben Weider in 1948 or 49, Jean-Jacques, you'd have to, I forget when it was, but you got the history. In the same venue where Ben Weider ran his first Mr. Universe. Like, isn't that cool? So we ran the first Ben Weider natural pro qualifier and natural pro show in that venue, just to get things started. So, I mean, the hope is that this natural Ben Weider is going to be like the Olympia of the natural movement. And NPC Worldwide and the IFBB Pro League have recognized that, and they're allowing us to continue to grow this on the natural movement. There's a lot of natural athletes out there that want to participate on that. In fact, there's a lot of natural athletes that compete both open and natural. Yeah. And we've actually had natural athletes that have won their pro cards, competed as a pro, who are natural, and actually won pro show, an open pro show. So we're pretty proud of that part. And I think that the natural movement is expanding, especially now in the US and around the world, because of what we're doing here in Canada. I mean, we had, out of those 60 events in 2019, like 25 of them are natural regional shows. That's
Okay, well,
unbelievable. Yeah. And the numbers are growing because, these true novice and these novice competitors that want to get on board, that are still living at home with mom and dad, they're going to compete natural. That's where mom and dad want them to be. So that's why we're getting more and more acceptance, let's just say, within the general public. And that's why we got mom and dad participating with their kids at our natural shows. And the open events are still huge and they're still strong. And we continue promoting that. And it works hand in hand. And in the old days, there was so much controversy. I mean, now we're combining natural and open events. The natural athletes are doing both. They got a chance to get their pro cards on the natural side of things and on the open side of things. So they especially the bikini and even figure competitors, even some of the men physique. In fact, like I said, one of the men physiques competitors that did get his pro card as a natural actually competed in Vancouver, won his pro card. And won the pro show as a natural athlete, competed at the Olympia, and didn't win the Olympia, but just getting on that Olympia stage, doesn't matter if you're natural or open. It's an experience that everybody wants to enjoy.
exactly.
I mean, the Natural Ben Weider Pro Show, which this year is going to be happening in the US, we plan to run it 1 year in the US, 1 year in Canada. The winners from that pro show get an automatic qualification to the Olympia. Isn't that exciting? So they don't care. They just want to go to the Olympia and they want to say that, hey, I stood on stage at the Olympia Championship. I stood on stage natural. I maybe didn't win, but I made it there. So like I said, the natural movement is something that I'm pretty proud of. And it's really something that I think that's going to continue growing along with the open events, and something that I think Canada should be proud of. And like I said, we got a lot of history. Ben and Joe Weider, it all started here. And then Joe Weider ended up moving to the US and, created an umpire there with his brother Ben kind of organizing the IFBB Federation. And we are where we are at now. I remember myself being involved in the early days, and the dream to get to the Olympics was always a goal that Ben Weider had. And we were so close, it seemed, and, it just never happened, They have all kinds of other sports that got involved into the Olympics, but I kind of lost my enthusiasm of making it to the Olympics. Or becoming a sanctioned Olympic sport.
Yeah.
But we're still a very strong sport anyway, regardless. And the movement to get into the Olympics is something that it's something that Ben Weider tried for his whole life till the end of his days. It would just never materialize. And but the natural movement was kind of a big part of trying to get the thing going into the Olympics and getting us in the Olympics, but it just never happened. It may happen someday, but I don't know. I don't know if it'll happen on my watch. I mean, it's going to be, it may happen. If it does, I would be extremely happy to see that. But right now it's a great sport. We got a lot of people that, that may not be involved in organized sport, like, maybe hockey and all that, or they played hockey, or they played, or they've been gymnasts, are kind of like coming to us now. I mean, they're all weight training.
Yeah, exactly.
And there's a future in our sport. You can earn a living, whether you're a trainer or a competitor. And if you're a competitor and a very successful competitor, and you don't have to necessarily win the Olympia, but if you got some titles and you're a good trainer, you can earn a living, a nice, comfortable living being a trainer or working for a supplement company. So it's an industry, and there's a lot of potential by getting involved as an athlete. So I mean, I love the sport, and I love surrounding myself with young athletes like yourselves, and it keeps us young, right?
Yeah.
And keeps me involved. And I was talking to Jim Mannion not too long. I said, Jim, when are you going to retire? He says, I'll probably never retire. He said, because he enjoys it.
Yeah.
I mean, usually, at a certain age, you're supposed to be, going to Florida and,
On the beach.
get a motorhome or a condo or something, but that's not going to happen. For me, this is my enjoyment. This is what I enjoy doing. And I enjoy trying to grow the sport,
Yeah.
not only in Canada, but, I've expanded to do some stuff in France, where there is no footprint there, NPC worldwide footprint there. So, I'm playing a role in expanding the sport in France, and also, expanding the natural movement in Colombia. We're running a bunch of natural shows there, but in France, we're planning to run 5 natural regional, right off the bat, first year, 5 natural regional shows, 5 open regional shows, a natural pro qualifier and an open pro qualifier. That's a big footprint right off the bat. It's not just one little show. And I'm just trying to grow the sport, and it's something that I'll probably always continue doing. But of course, Canada is my home, and we've come to a certain level here now, and we either want to maintain it or continue growing it. I mean, you look around Canada now, 10 years ago, there was all kinds of organizations, and, we were competing with other ones, but now our natural movement is so strong, and our open events are so strong, and the people that are involved on the high end of it, like, Arnold, he's involved with us. We're getting a lot of high profile people involved in our sport, big time actors that support the NPC worldwide, support the IFBB Pro League. So, everybody wants to get involved with the CPA or the IFBB Pro League, because the rewards are there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's worth something to say that you're an IFBB Pro. With the IA, there's some credibility to that.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing a lot of that, even in dans la belle province de Québec, tout le monde vient dans notre coin maintenant. Everybody's coming on our side. And I'm just glad that I was able to participate with the help of Jean-Jacques, and, it wasn't hard to convince many of the Quebecers who are bodybuilders and athletes to get on board with us, and I spent 2 years working in the shows in Quebec, and got to meet a lot of good people. We had some great promoters like Jean-Jacques and Miriam, and Miriam Capes, and Caleb, and there's some great promoters out there, and I think we're going to get more shows in Quebec, right, Jean-Jacques? I mean, eventually there's going to be more, but the sport is growing.
Yeah,
the sport is growing, and Canada is right in the center, and we're playing a big role, and we continue to. I'll tell you what, we're a big influence on what's happening on the IFBB Pro League and with the NPC worldwide. I mean, they're always communicating with us, and we're in a good position. Canadian Physique Alliance is in an extremely good position, and I think next year, everybody's, after the 2 years that we've had, there's going to be a lot more people wanting to get involved with the fitness industry, and I think our sport is positioned well to accept all these new competitors that want to come on board, and new trainers. So I can't see us not continue to grow.
exactly.
So I think we're in a good place right now.
Oh yeah, there's something I want to talk about. We didn't touch on is the Toronto Pro. So
Yeah.
you've been promoting that show for a while now. So when does that begin?
That was a big event. I mean, really, before the Toronto Pro Show happened, there was 1 or 2 pro shows in Canada. They kind of happened. It wasn't consistent. It was a big deal to run an IFBB Pro show here. So that happened like 10 years ago. I teamed up with Jim Morris, who's passed away. He was a partner, and he used to run some great shows here. I mean, there's so much history, even on the natural side of it. Jim ran some natural shows here, and Winston Roberts was all part of our team. But anyway, Jim Morris was running the provincials, and I had a meeting with Jim, and we had a third partner also. I said, listen, we need to run a pro show here in Canada. I mean, something that's going to be consistent, and we're going to run it every year. And the other fellow that was going to be a partner was Trent. So, we all put in a certain amount of money. We knew it was going to be a big event. I mean, to sanction an event like that, to have the prize money, which is all in US funds, which is another 20 or 30%, right off the bat, was a big effort. But I felt that Canada, we had come so far, we needed to get a pro show here. And I wanted this pro show to be a qualifier to the Olympia. So Jim Morris and I and another fellow by the name of Trent sort of got the ball rolling. In the end, Trent, backed off. He got cold feet and decided that, it was too much of an investment. And, we needed somebody else to come on board. And believe it or not, I convinced my daughter to throw some money in. She was like a webmaster and a great organizer. So the three of us, and of course, it was like a family business in a way, because of course my wife Angie, plays an extremely important role in organizing that pro event. But anyway, truth be told, okay, first year we ran that show, it was a huge success. We had, it was unbelievable. It was a great event, but we lost over $60,000. I mean, that's a lot of money for the first year. Where, not everybody can carry that kind of loss, right? But something, I can just see the light at the end of the tunnel. I can see that, this show is eventually going to do well.
Yeah.
And even though we did take a big hit the first year, I mean, you run it because you have a passion, but at the same time, you don't want to lose your house over it, right? Yeah. It's still, it's still a business. So we continued running it, and we ended up getting some real good title sponsors, GNC being one of them. And by the way, the reason we got GNC on board is because Jim Mannion introduced me to basically the GNC executive out in Pittsburgh. And that's where the head office is. And he's the one that introduced me, and GNC wanted to get involved with our show and wanted to get involved with what was happening in Ontario. Yeah. And it's thanks to Jim that, he introduced me to them. He was kind of like, they respected him a lot. He lived in Pittsburgh. He's like the godfather over there. Especially GNC, they had a great relationship. So GNC came on board with us and stayed with us, along with Allmax, which was a Canadian Toronto business. Yeah. They both got on board and became title sponsors of Toronto Pro Show. So that really helped us turn things around. That, along with expanding the pro qualifier, within 4 or 5 years, the red became black. You understand what I'm saying in terms of budget. Yeah. So the bills are paid. And then we lost Jim Morris. Unfortunately, he passed away. He was just a phenomenal person. So, I bought his share from his family. So, now the event is solely owned by, myself and, of course, my family, my daughter, Carla, and Angie. So the show was going to, in 2020, it would have been our 10th anniversary. It would have been, a huge event. And we're the only pro show in the world that had every category,
Yeah, that's true.
pro category. That's a big deal,
Yeah.
even more than the Arnold's or the Olympia. I mean, we had everything from women's bodybuilding to wheelchair.
Yeah.
You know, some shows had, you know, they didn't have wheelchair, or some shows had wheelchair, but they didn't have women's bodybuilding. So we really did pride ourselves in the fact that we were able to hold all the pro categories. And, you know, I mean, to run the pro show alone, you need the support of a huge expo and a huge pro qualifier to handle the overhead of that event. But the credibility that it brought to Canada and to the pro scene was unbelievable. It just brought us at that level. In fact, you know, we're like, if a pro competes at the Toronto Pro Show, we're considered the same level as the New York Pro.
Yeah, that's true.
In other words, if a pro competes at the Toronto Pro Show, they get more points than, you know, we're at tier 2 type event, because of the quality of athletes that compete there. And we've had a lot of great Canadian athletes that have, you know, made their debut at our show. And we're going to have it again this year. You know, unfortunately, it's not going to be the huge expo.
Yeah.
But we're going to have it at the Delta Hotel on December 5th. It's usually held in June, but there was no way I was going to let the pro show not happen 2 years in a row.
Yeah.
So, you know, we're going to have this event. We're going to have all the pro categories like we usually have, and we're going to have the pro qualifier. So basically, you know, it's going to be at the Delta Hotel where we usually run the pro qualifiers, like the Canadian National Pro Qualifier, and the Natural Canadas is held there. So it's basically at the Delta Hotel on Dixon Road. It's going to be a great event. It'll be strictly bodybuilding, figure fitness, all the events, but no huge expo, other than maybe we're going to have 15, 20 tables. That's as much as we could put there.
Yeah.
Hopefully we can get back to downtown Toronto at the Metro Toronto Convention Center, which is the premier center in Ontario. I mean, you're in downtown Toronto.
Exactly.
You're in one of the best venues in the world. Not in the world, in Canada. Well, for that matter, I think it's one of the greatest venues around. I mean, we got the hotel there. You know, I don't know if Pascal or Anthony have been there.
I've
Yeah, I've been there.
You've been there. So it's just a perfect venue, and you have to agree.
Yeah.
Hotel is there. The expo's there. We got the theater for the show. It's, you know,
Yeah, you could walk easily from everywhere to the hotel to the venue.
Exactly. So it's a beautiful venue. And of course, we want to get back there. And, you know, gatherings we're just not capable of doing it. But, you know, we will get back there hopefully in 2022. So we're going to keep it going this year. And we're proud of that show, you know, 10 years, 10 years in a row. So we want to keep it going. We want to keep it as a premier event in Canada. You know, Vancouver has they also have a pro show there, but you know, unfortunately this year they had to give it up. So I think they're not running the pro event. They're just going to run the pro qualifier and the Masters Bikini Pro show in December, at the end of December. So, you know, there's been a lot of changes this year, but we're going to manage to run shows.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, in the West Coast, we just had a show. You may be aware of it. There was, you know, 320 entries.
Oh my God.
That's pretty good for a little regional show. So, you know, things are opening up. I mean, Ontario's a little bit behind all the other provinces, but out west they're opening up, and I'm sure things are going to open up here too. We're gonna be back on track with a lot of great shows. But the Toronto Pro Show, it's a show that, you know, we plan to keep going. We plan to keep running that event.
Would you say that in 2022 you would do it in June again? Because now you want to do it in December, right? So that's like 7 months later.
Yeah. Yeah, we want to get back to the normal schedule because now we're running this show after the Olympia.
Yeah.
So everybody
Mhm.
that's running, that's going to compete on December 4th will qualify for next year's Olympia.
Yeah.
So yeah, unfortunately, there is a little bit of a timeline that is not perfect for running another pro show 7 months later because June is kind of like our month to run it, and it
Yeah.
qualifies you to the Olympia that year. There's no snow on the ground. It's nice and warm. People like to come to Canada, international travelers. I mean, we got people, we've made friends from all around the world to
Yeah.
come to the Toronto Pro Show. They love it. I mean, the US loves to come to
Yeah.
Canada, and we got, England, different Iran, Iraq. I mean, they all love coming to Canada. And, I think mid-June is a good time of year to have the event, especially if we're going to run it in Toronto.
Yeah.
The weather's nice.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
just a nice place to be. So that's what the plan is anyway for next year.
And I would like to know, how does someone start from judging a regional show to all the way up judging the Olympia?
Yeah. Yeah. It takes a lot of patience, and you just got to stay involved in the sport. You can't quit on it.
Yeah.
I know Jean-Jacques, you're starting to judge regional shows, and I got judges, asking me, to test judge pro qualifiers. They want to move up. They've been involved like 2 years. Like, so you listen. I hate to put it this way. I mean, first off, you have to have a good eye to be a judge, and it's not necessarily because you're a competitor or anybody can be a good judge. You don't have to be a previous competitor, but you got to be involved with the sport. I mean, you got to know what's going on in sport. You got to look, you got to attend the shows. But you're right. Usually, we'll start at a regional event, and somebody's interested in judging. Jean-Jacques might recommend somebody. Well, the first thing we'll want from that person, first off, you'll have to be a member of the Canadian Physique. You could be a competitor. We discourage trainers to be judges because it's just too controversial. There's a lot of trainers out there that would be excellent judges because they know what the athletes need to look like, and they have a good eye. But being a trainer just causes controversy. There's always that sense of conflict of interest, even if you don't have your client in that show because you're a trainer. So it eliminates a lot of good potential judges. But usually we need a resume from somebody that's a member, so they'll give us their history. Maybe they've competed before, or maybe they were a trainer and now they've retired from training, or they've been a competitor and they've retired from competing and they want to stay involved with the sport, and judging is something they think they're good at. So we'll invite them to test judge. We usually like them to test judge a pro qualifier. So at their own cost, we'll see, at their own cost, they can come and test judge. So, we got to see how passionate they are. If they're willing to come on their own cost and test judge, and are willing to join up, well, that certainly gives us a signal that, they're passionate and they want to judge. So eventually, they're going to test judge a show. And if their scores match up, I mean, we've gotten a little bit more strict now. Whereas, when a test judges at, say, a pro qualifier, he just doesn't follow the head judge. We'll have a lineup of maybe sometimes some lineups at the pro qualifiers might have 20 competitors. So the test judge has to give us their top 5 right off the bat, right after the presentation, just to see if they have an eye.
Yeah.
Because usually if we do a call out on the first top 5, well, it makes it too easy for a test judge to kind of just follow the head judge. So we're making it a little bit more challenging for them. So if they can pick, and Jean-Jacques, you've been there. So if they can pick, out of say there's a lineup of 20 bikini competitors, and if after they've done their presentation, they can pick like out of 5 that they give us, 3 or 4 of them are actually in the top 5. That's a pretty good signal that they know what they're looking at.
Yeah.
They understand the look. and the look changes every year. I mean, the look is based on the Olympia winners. And as you know, I get the opportunity to judge the Olympia, and I go to the Olympia every year. So the look has changed. We all see it. I mean, 20 years ago, 15 years ago, the look was different for bikini and figure. The look was different for bodybuilding. Yeah. So the trend changes, and we got to kind of follow the standard from the Olympia. Yeah. So, whoever wins the Olympia, well, that's the look that we're going for. Men's physique used to be a lot smaller, a lot leaner, not as muscular. Now the look is different. You see who's winning the Olympia. They're all big guys, huge shoulders, nice tight abs. They're carrying a lot more muscle. Where 5 years ago, that wasn't the case. 5 years ago, you were placed last because you look like a bodybuilder.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So you have to have an eye. So, once you become a regional judge, and now you got to judge shows. And sometimes in your province, there only may be 1 or 2 shows. So you might only be able to judge 1 show. And it's frustrating for judges if there's not that many shows in your province. We're fortunate here in Ontario because, we have a lot of events. So, the judges get more opportunities to judge. But as we get more shows in different provinces, a lot of the same judges are getting opportunities to judge. Some come in and judge 1 or 2 shows, and then they kind of give up on it. But those that stay on board and continue judging, continue test judging, will eventually get an opportunity to test judge a pro qualifier. And then that's the next level. Once you test judge a pro qualifier, we may give you an opportunity to actually judge the pro qualifier. Then once you judge a pro qualifier, which is the biggest event in Canada, then there may be an opportunity for a pro card. I mean, last year we gave pro cards to some pro judges that have been around for like 30 years, 25, 30 years. Paul Lozon earned his pro card here in Ontario. And of course, Rudy has had his judge's IFBB pro card for quite a few years. And he's gotten to judge some of the pro shows and a lot of the pro qualifiers. So, we got some new pro judges on board. And, we're hoping to get some more, but there's only so many pro shows in Canada. Yeah. So, they may not have an opportunity to judge the pro shows right away. And, once you become a pro judge, you got to buy a pro card, which is a lot more expensive also. Yeah. And we also got Tammy Beckers, who's a head judge. Usually before you become a pro judge, you have to eventually be a head judge. You have to literally lead the judges panel. So, not only do you learn how to judge, but eventually, we're not going to give anybody an opportunity to get an IFBB pro judges card until they've become, let's say, a leader and actually, takes the panel and leads the panel. The head judge plays such a huge role, whether it's Rudy or myself or Tammy. The head judges are the one that are kind of leading the judges, right, Jean-Jacques? I mean, you've judged a few of the shows. You know what I'm talking about. So if the head judge is doing a great job, and and the right people are winning the shows, that head judge will eventually get an opportunity to actually possibly test judge for a pro card. And we have quite a few head judges that are not pro judges yet. Whether it's Heather LeBlanc, there's quite a few head judges, and there's another one in the East Coast that's a head judge. But we have head judges all around that are going to eventually have an opportunity, we hope, to get their pro cards and get to judge. Now, to get to judge the Olympia, I have really been fortunate, and it's something like I don't want to give up my seat. You know what I'm saying? I've paid my dues. I'm on the list. Sorry. And, once you're there, you don't want to say, something, I'm going to give up my seat and let somebody else. No. As long as the invitation is there, I really consider it like a real perk and a real honor to represent Canada on that judge's seat. and get to judge the Arnolds and the Olympia, the two largest, greatest shows in North America, well, in the world for that matter. So because of my years of experience, you got to remember, I told you when I got involved in the sport. So, when you're going back to, as I said, 1970, we're in 2020. So you do the math. So, there's a lot of years there. And I'd say, I really started to seriously do a lot of judging, like probably 10 years after getting involved as a competitor. So really started judging a lot from 1980 on. So, that's 40 years of judging. So, I paid my dues and, I want to continue judging, eventually, somebody else is going to step to the plate and get that opportunity. I believe likely Rudy will be, he's judged a lot of international and pro qualifiers. He's judged pro shows along with me, the Vancouver Pro. He judges the Toronto Pro Show. He's going to get more opportunities, and he actually had judged not too long ago in Vancouver, which is, he's healthy now and he's back on the road. He's so excited to be involved and to continue judging. Sometimes it's, I'm involved in promoting and doing a lot more than just the judging, but some judges, that's all they want to do is judge.
Yeah.
Like Tammy Beckers, for instance, doesn't promote any shows, just head judges and judges. She loves it. And, so some of them, they're just focused on that. They're not focused on, promoting events and judging and, other things. So everybody's going to get their opportunities. And, hopefully one day we'll get a pro judge in the province of Quebec. When you think about it, the Canadian Physique Alliance, we're only like 2 years old, really.
Yeah.
It's true.
3 years old, right? Because we had the big changeover,
Yeah.
and Jim Mannion, appointed me here in Canada to be, the president of Canada, take care of the Canadian, the CPA. So that was a big deal.
Yeah.
Because I was, IFBB International through and through, but I was also had a very, very strong relationship with the NPC and the IFBB Pro League, which, let's face it, they're our neighbors.
Yeah.
And, I related with the Olympia. I relate with the Arnolds. I didn't relate with what was happening in Iran or Pakistan and these European countries where, there were international shows, even though I did get the opportunity to judge international events in Brazil, in different countries, including out in the East. Was it forget the name of that country, but I did do some international events, and that was a great experience. But our relationship with the U.S. was so strong that that's the direction that only made sense for us to go. And Jean-Jacques saw the same thing.
Yeah.
I mean, opportunity to get involved with the IFBB Pro League was a lot stronger than to get involved with the IFBB International. And looking at it now, it was the right decision. I mean, you can see it here in Canada. We're stronger than ever. And we open things up. There's a lot more opportunities now in Canada. And we get a lot of our athletes are getting opportunities at the North American, which is open to Canada. They give out like 150 pro cards there, and provided they compete at one of our pro qualifiers, top 15 from our pro qualifiers get to go to the North Americans. So we're getting a lot more pros. You're probably seeing it across Canada. We're getting a lot more pros, and these new divisions like wellness is like. It's unbelievable. When I first saw those girls come on stage, I was like, it blew my mind. It was like, wow, this new category. I was so used to judging balance and proportion, and then yet you saw these huge girls come on stage that had that the bikini look, and yet they had the the glutes and the quads of figure skaters, so athletic looking. So, again, that was another dimension that I had to get used to. And judging wellness is just a whole new category that is exploded. I actually started in really something that was kind of taken from the IFBB International, because it was huge already in Brazil and all those other countries. And now it's just growing in North America and, all around the world. It's just a great category. So I don't know how many more categories we're going to add, but I am happy that, there's one thing that I did keep alive. And for a while, it was kind of something that wasn't being done, is the women's bodybuilding.
Yeah.
Even at the Toronto Pro Show and other pro shows were being held like 10 years ago, I had the women's bodybuilding at my event every year. And they got eliminated from the Olympia and because they weren't accepted. It was just not accepted by the general public. They went to the extreme. And the reason they went to that extreme is because the judges rewarded those that were extreme. So it really wasn't their fault. They were just following where the judges were going. So, so then we introduced women's physique to kind of soften that up a little bit. Now the women's physique are getting, they're getting extreme. But, the judges really are the ones that decide the direction of the sport. So, we need the will to sometimes hold back a little bit and judge, not really count on them being as extreme as they need to be. And that's why the Olympia, sometimes you wonder why so-and-so won. They weren't as extreme. Well, we're trying to send a message. This is the look that we want, and even the bikini competitors, we're starting to hold back a little bit, but, we still want that athletic look. Compared to what it was. I remember judging the bikini. It first came on board at the Arnold's. I believe it was the Arnold's. I know I was judging the show, and it was like a bikini contest. Like I said, like, what the heck, swimwear. You had a beautiful bikini look, beach, and now they're like, wow, they train harder than some of the bodybuilders in the gym. They work their glutes and they're hitting the weights hard. And they just have, some of them have just extremely beautiful physiques. Yeah. And, that sport is doing very well, very well.
Yep.
So, so when going back to the judging, you can see, what's involved. So, we get a lot of applicants, and, we continue, looking for judges, and we never close the door on that. But, people, they have to have a passion for it. They have to want it. They have to be willing to, to test judge and jump through some hoops and pay their dues. You're not going to get to judge the Olympia, not after, a couple of years of judging. So, at the Olympia, you got, I think we have a total of 12 or 14 judges that they invite to judge the Olympia. And that's from around the world. Yeah. So, there's pro judges from all over the place. So we're fortunate that Canada is represented every year at the Olympia and every year at the Arnold. So, like I said, we play a very important role with the organization. And I think they see our contribution and what we're doing here in Canada as a CPA. They see, Jim Mannion, Tyler Mannion, JM Mannion, the whole NPC organization. I mean, they're on social media. They're watching. They're looking at the CPA website. They're looking at our shows. They're looking, at our competitors. They're looking. I mean, look who, like, we got Olympia winners. We we're a big influence now. We're winning. Fitness won the Olympia. Yeah. Classic physique. We won the Olympia. So we got Olympia winners, and we got bikini competitors are placing in the top 3 at the Olympia. So that's quite the footprint. Canada's well represented, and Miriam from Quebec, came in second at the Olympia. I mean, that's unbelievable. I mean, she came that close. She was always in the top 5, was well represented. But now we have, like I said, we have, a fitness competitor that is Canadian, that is a current Olympia winner. And then we have our classic physique guy that's a current, Olympia winner. So, and they're great ambassadors for the sport. Chris Bumstead is well known now, and he's from Ottawa, and we're so proud of him. And I think we're going to continue having winners there.
Yeah.
Considering the size of our country and the numbers of athletes that we have here compared to the U.S. and the rest of the world, we're well respected. We're in. The trainers know what they need to do to get the athletes where they have to be. They know what the look is, and at one time when we were, back in the day when we were part of the Canadian Bodybuilding Federation, we would send athletes to the pro qualifiers in the US, or they would get their pro card here in Canada, and then, they'd show up in the US and they just couldn't, the judging was just not the same. We weren't judging according to what they wanted to see at the Olympia. But now we're so consistent with what we're doing, we're kind of like on the same level. We understand, as head judges, we understand the look. And when they get their pro cards and get to compete either at the Toronto Pro Show or at any pro show across the US, the look is right on. And that's why we're placing very high at these events, whether it's the Olympia or, the New York Pro or any of the pro shows that are being held. But of course, the Toronto Pro Show is the gem in Canada, and a lot of our Canadian athletes, want to compete at that show and make us proud. So we'll keep that going on. So I hope I answered your question. Kind of went off the judging a little bit, kind of went all over the place, maybe because it's past my bedtime here. But that's basically it when it comes to the judging part.
Yeah. There's just one final thing I would like to know. For how many years now have you been judging the Olympia and the Arnold?
Yeah, I mentioned at the beginning, I think it's close to about 10 years in a row.
10 years in a row.
So I judged when Ronnie Coleman was winning the Olympia.
What?
When Ronnie Coleman was winning it's about 10 years in a row. So that's a big deal. I mean, when I was judging pro shows at that time, Wayne D'Amelia was president, I guess, of the IFBB Pro League. So, I was judging Olympias when he was involved as the president. But I was judging pro shows long before the Olympia.
Yeah.
I mean, I judged pro shows in different parts of the U.S. And then I finally got an opportunity to judge the Olympia. And then from there, basically a year later, or maybe even the same year, I got to judge the Arnolds. So it's been about 10 years in a row, which is, or maybe even a little bit more. I'd have to double check my record.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you've judged Ronnie Coleman, I mean, it must have been at the beginning of the 2000s.
Yeah. So it's probably more than 10 years.
Yeah, about 20 years.
I judged Ronnie Coleman, when he won it, and before. So we go back to that era, and the Olympia wasn't held at the same hotel. It was held at Mandalay Bay at that time.
Definitely 20 years ago. Definitely.
Okay, so I got a lot of years. But it's been a lot of years that I've been judging it, and I've been quite fortunate to have that opportunity, and to continue to get the invitation. So hopefully, this year, as you know, the Olympia is going to be held October 9th, right? So it's not going to be the same, and I'm so busy now, with trying to promote the sport in other countries. I'm kind of like an ambassador for the NPC. On October 9th, we're actually running a show in France. So I'll likely be in France that weekend as a head judge for that event that's being promoted by myself and a fellow by the name of Ian. So, you know, I'm kind of like sacrificing that show for this year. I mean, you know, likely in 2022, I'm going to try to make sure that that date is the date that nobody, you know, that I'm not going to run any shows, because, you know, it's something that I look forward to, because it's not just a Saturday. It's like when I go to the Olympia, it's like I'm there for the week.
Yeah.
Because there's so much going on. And, you know, you get it's not just the judging part. You know, you get to sit with the pros. You know, you're having breakfast with, you know, and because you're an Olympia judge, you know, you got the front seat, right? And it just gives us an opportunity to talk to, you know, the Ronnie Colemans and the Phil Heaths, and, you know, maybe, you know, talk about getting them to guest pose at some shows here in Canada. There's just that connection that you can have at the Olympia that you don't get anywhere else, because everybody's so busy.
Yeah.
Even the Arnolds, with the expo at the Arnolds, a lot of the pros are so busy with the expo that they don't have a chance to kind of sit down and relax and have conversations with you. Where the Olympia, you know, there's more opportunities to sit down and meet up, you know, and have dinner or supper, or, you know, have a conversation with some of the, you know, the key players in the sport, you know, whether it's the promoters or the competitors. And there's just so much more. And of course, sponsors. It's a great opportunity for promoters like myself who are running an event like the Toronto Pro Super Show, where you need big sponsors to try to, you know, pay the bills on that event and to keep it going. The Olympia is definitely a great meeting place to have those valuable discussions. So yeah, quite a few years judging that event, and you know, I feel that I still got some years to do, and you know, provided, you know, I clean my glasses and my eyes are good, and that you know, I still have a good eye for it. But it really is not only, it's kind of like training in a way. Also, it kind of sort of you know, judging that show helps me dictate the direction here in Canada as a head judge.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, a lot of that, like Rudy comes up to the Olympia, even though he's not judging. He'll be judging the amateur Olympia. He does it every year. He wants to be sitting in the front there to see also. Yeah. So it's all about keeping ourselves current as head judges. And, you know, and some of the judges who are head judges, whether it's Tammy or Paul or anybody that's head judging it, you know, if they have an opportunity to go to the Olympia, they should be there. Again, it's training for them, so they can see that, you know, the look that they're looking at is the look that we're going to want, you know, at a regional event. Even for a true novice that's never been on stage, you're still thinking, okay, what's the look? Well, you still go back to the Olympia. Obviously, they're not going to be at that extreme and that accomplished, but it's the look that they're striving for. Yeah. So it helps. It helps us be good judges and helps us to be consistent. And that's tough in judging. It's a tough, you know, it's tough to be a judge. You know, you criticize, doesn't matter what, you know. There's only one winner. So everybody that places second, third, fourth, and whatever, you know, they want to know why they place where they place. So you got to be ready to give them the reasons and give them, you know, whether it's a video critique or a critique, you got to give them some legitimate reasons and give them some constructive criticism so they can improve and do what they need to do to move up in the ranks. Yeah. You know, because not everybody's going to win. Everybody's a winner that's on stage. They're all winners, but not everybody's going to get that trophy. Yeah. So in a lot of cases, a lot of the competitors are not necessarily on stage to win, but it's just a personal achievement for themselves, you know, and the challenge of, you know, doing something outside the box. And once they get the bug, though, now they want to win. And that's where it gets more competitive, right? Yeah. So, you know, you get to meet a lot of different people. So, yeah, I've been judging it for a long time and been promoting shows, as you know, for a long time, starting with the Sudburys And you know, the shows that I'm promoting now are you know, still a lot of work, but you know, we got a lot of help. I mean, we get a lot of volunteers. You know, like guys like Jean-Jacques. Yeah, I mean, we've got to get statisticians. We got to get volunteers backstage. You know, we get, you know, people just, you know, they come to help. You know, they're not expecting any kind of monetary compensation.
Yeah.
You know, as long as it doesn't cost them money, uh, they're there to volunteer. So those are the real heroes. You know, these volunteers that are backstage, helping us put the plastic on the floor to protect it or whatever it may be. You know, these are the real heroes too. You know, are the ones that are going on stage. They're being ambassadors on stage or helping us get the athletes or backstage crew. A lot of those people are involved, but they're not, you know, they're not necessarily high profile,
Yeah.
but they're there to. It takes, how do they say? It takes a whole village of people to put a show together. It's just not one person. So you know, we appreciate everything that's being done, and you know, for instance, let's just let me say like New Brunswick, you know, with Jean and Heather. I mean, they just ran a show there. I mean, in Newfoundland, I think they only had about 30 competitors. You know, obviously they ran that show not for the money. They ran it because they wanted to make sure that because it wasn't run last year, they wanted to make sure it ran this year. So they ran it because they have a passion for the sport. And you know, even though it's in Newfoundland, they only had about I think a total of 25 or 30 bodies. So they still ran the show. They still had some good support. You know, it wasn't about the money. And then the show previous to that they ran in New Brunswick, I mean, the venue is unbelievable, and they spent a lot of money on ensuring that the competitors had a great experience. So there's a lot of promoters out there that, yeah, you know, they want to make some money to pay the bills, but you know, they're stepping to the plate and they're running shows. And you know, like I said, the first time I ran the Toronto Pro Show, you know, it wasn't fun. It's always more fun when the bills are paid. You know, it's always more fun. But those that do have a passion for it are going to stick to it, and they'll keep running the shows, and the shows will just get bigger and stronger. So it's a combination. It is really I guess a combination of the athletes, the trainers, the promoters, the judges. It's really a huge community. I mean, you know, without the trainers, you know, and without the athletes, and without like, you know, the puzzle has to come together, and everybody's got to kind of fit in that puzzle to make it a success here in Canada. And I think that's what we're doing. You know, the trainers are on board, the promoters are on board, the athletes are on board. You know, Classic Muscle Media is on board. You know, you guys are promoting the sport. You're doing interviews with people like me and people that are in the sport. So everybody's playing a role in helping grow the sport here in Quebec, Ontario, and the rest of Canada. So, you know, like what we're doing right now, this discussion, this conversation, just tells you that there's a lot of us involved. So it's not just one person, that's for sure. I mean, I might have the title, but it's certainly it's not me. It's the whole community that I think is making the Canadian Physique Alliance so strong, so recognized, and accepted by NPC worldwide. We're the only ones around the world, you know, that has a special, I think, a real special relationship with NPC worldwide. And as I said before, a lot of it has to do with the history, with the Ben Weider and the Joe Weider, and the history that we have with the U.S. So, you know, I think the future is looking really good. I think the negative stuff is behind us. You know, we got a lot of shows coming. You know, there's some shows in Ontario that are confirmed. And, you know, there's a show in Ottawa, Jean-Jacques. You got some shows going on. So there's a lot of shows that are being run, and the promoters are committed to run it, regardless of what the numbers are going to be. I just talked to my venue in Ottawa, And, the maximum amount of people we can have in Ontario at this venue, because it's being run in a tent, is 88 people. That includes the judges, the competitors, and the audience. So, we're going to find a way to do it, and obviously, we would like to have a huge audience, to help pay the bills and that. But regardless of that, we're going to run the show. We're committed to running it. Same with the Canadian National Pro Qualifier. We're committed to running it, whether we have, only 50 people allowed at a time. We'll find a way to run it. And if there's no audience, there's no audience.
Yeah.
And of course, that's part of the big, that's part of the income in order to pay the expenses. So, I think all of the promoters are stepping to the plate this year, knowing that, they may take a hit, but they have a passion for the sport, and there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and the future is just going, it's going to grow, and the return is going to come. And by running it this year, just to show the athletes that we're prepared to step to the plate, then the athletes are prepared to do the same. They're prepared to step to the plate, buy memberships, train, and get ready for the shows. So it's going to be a busy September, October, November, trust me, and August, to tell you the truth, because we have a few shows going on in August. So we're going to have a great year. We're going to have a great, strong finish this year, and then in 2022, hopefully, we're going to be back, bigger and stronger.
Speed.
Yeah, exactly. Jean-Jacques, t'as-tu quelque chose à dire, toi?
Non.
So before we wrap up, I just want to say again, thank you for doing this run. We really appreciate, and I'm speaking for everyone. I would say we're lucky to have you, and we're proud of what you're doing. And again, like, I've been somebody that has been competed like before the CPA and well into the CPA now, and there's just so much a difference for Quebec, at least. I mean, I don't know for Ontario, but for us, it's been a major improvement, I would say. So thank you for all of that.
Well, thank you. And like, hearing that is so encouraging. It's just great to hear that. And I think there's a lot of competitors like yourself who have seen, both sides, and they're happy where they are now. Yeah. And hopefully we get to see you on stage again.
Yeah. I'm working on that. It's been a little bit hard with the past few months, but it's in the making.
Yeah, well, that'll be great. That'll be great to see you on stage. But well, thank you for the invitation. And I know we kind of touch on a lot of different subjects. We really didn't get into details. But anytime you want to have another conversation, or talk about more specific things, whether it's competitors, qualifications, or different categories, what the look is that we're looking for. If there's certain things that you want to have a conversation about, other than what we talked about today, which was more generalized, I guess you could say. Yeah. Don't hesitate to give me a call, and I'll be more than happy.
Yeah, I think it'll be fun, and to know, get a feedback from our audience, to know what else they'd like to know. We talk a lot about you as a person and what you went through, but maybe the audience has more specific question, like you said, about what category you're looking for exactly. I think a lot of people might be interested in that too.
Yeah, sure. If you want to do a survey, ask those that are watching this video.
Yeah.
If you want to do another interview, get those questions from the athletes, from the trainers, from whoever's listening in.
Yeah.
And we'll try to give them the answers, the straight answers. And I'll be more than happy to participate in that.
Well, that would be great.
Sounds good. Sure. I'm okay for that. Yeah, anytime. So listen, just give me a call. And I'd be more than happy to do something. I don't know how long we've been talking here, or I've been talking,
It's been great. It's been great.
It's probably been. I guess there was not too many questions asked, so I suppose I've been doing most of the
It's
talking.
perfect.
So maybe next time, I'll you can give me a lineup of questions, and I'll
Yeah,
keep
we'll
the
shoot you the
conversation.
questions.
Yeah. We'll get right to the questions. So yeah, I'd be more than happy to do some more interviews and participate. I like what's happening in Quebec, by the way. I know this is open to all of Canada, and the questions can come in from anybody that's listening from across Canada. But if you don't mind, j'aimerais dire quelques mots en français parce que je suis comme chrétien, tu sais, je parle du côté de ma bouche, tu sais, un peu. Anyway, j'ai vraiment pratiqué mon français à Québec, puis Jean-Jacques, tu m'as aidé beaucoup. Et l'expérience que j'ai eue tu sais, mon français, il n'est pas fort, je suis acadien, puis tu sais, je parle toujours anglais chez nous, je suis marié à une femme italienne et anglaise, mes enfants parlent français quand même, mais l'expérience que j'ai eue en parlant français avec Jean-Jacques et avec des copains de Québec, ça m'a aidé beaucoup avec le langage, avec ceux que j'ai parlé avec en France. Alors, j'ai eu des conversations avec beaucoup de monde en France et ils m'ont dit que mon français il est raisonnable, disons. Ils comprennent ce que j'ai à dire. Alors, j'espère de continuer de faire des voyages à Québec comme juge en chef et pratiquer mon français en même temps. Puis, j'aime ça, tu sais, j'aime ça encore un peu parce que comme être un Acadien français, puis garder le langage français, c'est important. Puis c'est facile à perdre le langage français. Si tu ne le parles pas, tu vas le perdre. Alors, je trouvais que j'avais beaucoup de difficultés à m'exprimer en français et encore, je ne suis pas parfait avec mon français. Mais je trouve que le plus que j'en parle et le plus que je fais des communications avec ceux, même si j'ai des coups de téléphone des Français de Québec, là, des fois j'ai des coups de téléphone, ils ont des questions, ils parlent anglais, mais je leur dis, parle-moi en français quand même, je veux parler en français. Alors, juste pour m'aider un peu. Anyway, merci beaucoup pour tous ceux dans le Québec qui m'ont aidé avec mon français et que si je retourne là-bas, je suis toujours fier d'être acadien français et de mon langage français. Je suis quand même pas un séparatiste, mais quand même, je suis fier d'être français, canadien français et je vais toujours m'exprimer si je suis capable. Et Jean-Jacques, tu m'as toujours aidé beaucoup. Ton français il est impeccable. Alors, on va continuer nos conversations en français quand je retourne à Québec. So, just wanted to get that out there, guys. So,
Perfect.
looking forward to going back to Quebec to maybe head judge some of the shows. I know Mimi's having one there, and I know Jean-Jacques going to have some. So, hopefully, I'll be able to make it and head judge those events and continue the great relationship that we have. I mean, Ontario and Quebec, we are the two. I think I know Alberta and BC are doing extremely well, but I think Quebec and Ontario are the two strongest provinces when it comes to the sport. And the strongman event. I mean, look at Quebec. With Louis Cyr and I mean the strongman events. Quebec are unbelievable. And there's kind of like a relationship between bodybuilding and strongman. But anyway, again, going off topic here. Let's get together and have another conversation. We can talk about anything.
That's cool. That's awesome.
Talk about me blueberry picking. I don't care. We'll have another conversation, and let's talk bodybuilding. Let's talk the sport.
Yeah, perfect.
I love talking about the sport, and I love promoting it. So. Thanks to you guys. And
thanks again.
You're welcome.
So on that note, we will
we'll talk
end
soon.
there. So we'll talk soon. All right.
All right. Take care. À la prochaine.